G'day, Auntie Mahar here. And I'm going to respond to a comment with a couple of questions or a major question in it that was left on the podcast that went up to the channel yesterday called Quiet BPD 10 Reasons Why It Destroys Relationships. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe, hit that notification bell, click all, and help the channel to get seen a little more in the algorithm, because if my content is helping you, to help more people, if they could find me too, or find this channel. So by the way, normal is not coming back. And for those of you that might be like-minded like myself, but Jesus Christ is. So anyway, that's the end of that. I don't proselytize or talk about religion on this channel. Oh yeah, and Canada is definitely not for sale. Might be for something else, but let's hope he doesn't do that. Anyway, and hi to all my American friends, no matter which way you voted, because politics can't ever divide us in healing and growing. So this commenter said, I have so much light in my face I can hardly see it now. This commenter said, I have been in a relationship for 6 years with a girl who has diagnosed BPD. She's definitely a quiet borderline. She doesn't yell or use violence, but she focuses all her energy on manipulation. And that's an interesting comment in and of itself, because it might seem like people with BPD are focusing like a lot of energy on manipulation. And maybe sometimes they really consciously are, but so often what they're doing is so driven by their defenses and that egocentric nature, to alloplastic defenses and egocentric nature, to the reality that what they're doing is to protect themselves and to try to, quote, take care of themselves. They may well not know what they're doing exactly, but yeah, it ends up being manipulation anyway, doesn't it? All too often. Commenter continues, she was in therapy constantly. Well, I guess that should be consistently, because yeah, that's something, for 2 years, and now she stopped because of financial problems, even though she wants to go back. Well, interesting, because, financial issues in our world today, in some countries and for some people more than others, can really be a block to therapy. And in the case of people with BPD that aren't high functioning and don't have a lot of education and or careers, that could really be true. But I think another thing that's kind of true wherever possible is that people should be prioritizing their budgets when they have BPD and they need that treatment. They should be prioritizing their budgets to make sure that that's right up there after the other essentials in life. Because for people with BPD, therapy and consistent therapy in the best modalities to treat it is a really high priority. And so when people don't make that a high priority, and or their self-harm and impulsivity is causing them to spend money in other ways and recklessly, then they're sabotaging themselves. So no matter how much they might say, or really even mean, my eyes watering now, excuse me, that they really want to continue, but, well, they'll say it's financial, maybe it really is, but there's a lot of other reason for the buts, because they don't really want to go, no matter what they're saying, often. And the commenter continues, however, she's always continued to take her medication. It's the reason I'm doing this comment response pretty much. How okay or not okay is this? Well, first of all, I'm not a psychiatrist, so not really supposed to talk a lot about meds, so I'll just be doing that from a personal perspective and some other knowledge. Let me put it that way. So taking medication when you have borderline personality disorder is really not okay, largely, because a lot of that medication might be aimed at other things, co-occurring things, like depression. That's not comorbid, just co-occurring things, like depression, anxiety. Sometimes people with BPD have a lot of problems with trait number 9. I can't remember how they phrase it exactly, but the transient psychosis or the transient paranoia. So it's hard to say about that, but generally speaking, and what I've seen, and I can never retrace my steps back to this British mental health website professional that said in a slide presentation of many slides, the key one that I remember was they said correctly, from all that I understand, though I'm not an expert in medication, right? I mean, I know a lot about it, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, okay, I'll go on anyway. Psychiatric medication, this is a quote from something in Britain, professional organization. Psychiatric medication is counterindicated in the treatment of borderline personality disorder. So again, it depends what else they have going on, but also I would say, based on psychiatrists that I've interviewed when I had a Blog Talk Radio show a long time ago, like 2011 or something. But yeah, like psych meds are exceedingly dangerous, and they do cause the brain unhealthy and unnecessary and sometimes really devastating changes. And so I'm going to put a link to a psychiatrist on YouTube who talks about psych med dangers, so you can take it from him and not just from me. So no, them taking medication is really, it might have, like I said, efficacy versus like the dangers of SAD. The dangers are like, you know, and the efficacy might be like down here somewhere. But for BPD alone, zero efficacy to those medications. If they're helping them with, I don't know, anxiety or depression or something, but still, the cost of that is really high. So to answer this commenter, the fact that she's on the medication, and when you asked me, where was that now? Sorry, I always lose my place on these things. How okay or not okay is this? Well, it's not really okay. It's not really healthy. It's not really recommended. And I'll just add in, as somebody who recovered from BPD fully, you know, like almost 40 years ago now, and yes, it was all documented, and no, I didn't just say that about myself, and I had maybe 4 traits, whatever. Point is, I never took any psychiatric medication. And I would have to fire psychiatrists over that because they were trying to coerce me into taking them, okay? And they were even worse back, well, I don't know, they were just as bad back then. But the fact is it okay or is it not okay? Well, any medication any psychiatric medication that anybody with BPD is on is going to do pretty much zero to treat anything to do with borderline personality disorder. So in that way, I say, plus the other, which I'll leave the link down to the psychiatrist who's on YouTube talking about all of the psych med stuff. No, generally not okay anyways, actually, for people. And the commenter continues, I finally decided to go to therapy. Well, I'm glad, because everybody needs to do that for themselves after they've been with somebody with BPD, in the trauma bond, fantasy bonds, the betrayal bonds, and just what the relationships are all about, and then what you really go through with the breakup, whether you get ghosted, discarded, or you make the choice to leave. So that's a good thing that you're going to do for you. And you said you're going to go to therapy to understand why I got into this relationship and why I can't get out of it. With trauma bond is the reason it's so hard to get out of, with codependency, by the way. And you said, I keep telling myself that since neither of her parents are alive and she's alone and has financial problems, she could do anything. Well, you know, there is like so many people who are maybe no contact now with somebody with BPD. They got ghosted, discarded. It's a breakup. Hopefully it's going to be a breakup that lasts for codependent's sake, for loved ones' sake, for the sake of all you exes out there. But this thinking about them, oh, you know, their parents are gone now, or they don't get along with parents that might still be here, or you know, their financial problems and all this. I mean, they have a lot of responsibility that they're not taking, don't know how to cope with, don't even have the awareness of, for a lot of the things that exist the way they do in their lives. And unfortunately, people with BPD don't ask for BPD. People with BPD don't, create why they have BPD. But when they're adults now, adult chronological adults, they have to take responsibility, and therapy is the way. So rather than, worrying about them and feeling sorry for them, which people do, but people who are exes and codependents do it way, way too much, it's hurting you. It's not helpful or going to be healthy for you moving forward. So you kind of have to let that go, kind of like in the sense of just placing it back on her, that all those things going on in her life, yes, you may still care, but you're not her rescuer. You're not her mommy or her daddy, and you can't help, fix, rescue, or change somebody with BPD. Now, some people do after relationships, they might pay for some therapy, but that more often than not turns out to be that these people aren't seriously in therapy. I've had clients that have paid for an ex or an on-off person with BPD's therapy only to find out they were using the money for other things. So really you have to work on, like you said, you're going to therapy to work on, and I'm out here to work with people on this if you resonate with me. Yeah, why'd you get there and why can't you get out? And getting out means not continuing to worry about them, to rescue them, to want to help them with money or help them with this or help them with the therapy. Because you know what? There isn't going to be any therapy they're going to get. I mean, they might go to therapy, but they still need a good 8 to 16 years in the best treatment modality, transference-focused psychotherapy, to really be able to change and grow and heal in ways that will help them to really be able to be in healthy relationships. So you have to kind of start letting that go. And the first thing you have to do is just try really hard, tell yourself thought stopping, distract yourself. When you get to thinking and worrying about her, that's her situation, unfortunately, and it's also her responsibility. Not yours, for sure. And I'm just looking for my place here. Is her continuing to take her medication and going sporadically when she has money to the psychologist acceptable? Well, I mean, it's not unacceptable in the sense that I guess that's what she was told to do. But if she's seeing a psychologist, in most areas of the world, they don't write the prescriptions. So she must have had some consultation with a doctor or a psychiatrist. But that said, is it acceptable, her taking the medication and going sporadically to therapy? And then the commenter added, and a good sign. Can't really speak to the acceptable part because that's up to everybody to make their own choices, etc. But is it a good sign? No. Is it a better sign than they're not in therapy at all, they've had no therapy? Yeah, maybe, but that doesn't help in relationships. It doesn't help them learn how to relate. It doesn't help them to know who they are. It doesn't help them to know how to, see the other person, how to really care about the other person, not just be focused on their own distress and discomfort more often than not. So I would say, is it a good sign? No. Or minimally, but nothing to hang your hat on, nothing to hope for major change from her with. If it's sporadic therapy, and again, the medication's doing zero to help her create a container of self in therapy, or to help her know who she is, to help her to be able to do all the work of unlearning all the alloplastic egosyntonic defenses. The medication does is zero. So that doesn't matter in that sense. And also, it's not a good sign if you have any hopes of, being over concerned about this person ongoing, and or you would ever consider trying again. No, the answer is no. It's not a good sign for that consideration. And the commenter said, or is it a sign that she doesn't really want to get better and I should run away? Well, I don't know if she really wants to get better or not, but she's not on a track to get better right now with sporadic therapy. And like I said, medications are counterindicated in the treatment of borderline personality disorder because for the actual reality of what BPD is, there's no known medication that touches that or is efficacious for that whatsoever. Just like all these people saying, oh, it's 100% biological, and or Dr. Peter Salerno says that. It's 100% biological, BPD is, and they're born that way, and and there's no trauma, or they'd all have trauma. It's flawed ideology. It's a false equivalency argument, and the point I'm making is they don't have a blood test for this. So why do we think that medication, why do people out there think medication is going to be the answer, when the answers in the best treatment modalities for BPD are already right there, waiting for people with BPD to, unfortunately pay for it, engage in that treatment, and they don't need the medications. Not for BPD core issues. They have co-occurring depression and anxiety. I don't know. There's ways to learn how to deal with those too. And I think that everything that someone needs to deal with, whether you have codependency or it's personal BPD, your ex or what have you, psych meds aren't the way to go. They really aren't. And and please don't just listen to me. I know what I'm talking about, but again, I'm not really supposed to talk much about that. But I'm not saying it in any individual way or making any sort of client recommendation. I don't do that with medication, except I often do inform a lot of clients, the YouTuber to watch who is a psychiatrist and what he says about meds. And also, there's a book out there, I forget what it's called, by Robert Whitaker, Anatomy of an Epidemic, in which Robert Whitaker says, quote, there's no such thing as a chemical imbalance in the brain until and unless you take psychiatric medication, end quote. And Dr. Peter Breggin has a few books out there about how toxic that medication is. So I wouldn't put any stock or hope in that, because meds don't do anything for borderline personality disorder. And I mean, I won't go into it, but I have a personal anecdote of my own experience where, I didn't take any psych meds. And long story short, for the rages that I used to have, like over 40 plus years ago now, there was a time in which I needed to take a medication that was for a physical problem, which was then helped with the neuroplasticity and everything throughout the treatment. And my recovery from, I think, 4 core traits of BPD, just watching a dog go nuts over there. But the point is that, the issues why I needed to take the med, well, they thought I had temporal lobe epilepsy, temporal lobe dysfunction, and actually the problem was solved when the neuroplasticity in my therapy and recovery helped, because my brain rewired itself, and neurons no longer, and for the last 40 years plus, haven't run into the scar tissue that I have in each temporal lobe, which was like a traumatic birth, and I don't think is really associated with BPD at all. So the point is that and when I was on the medication that was helping with those symptoms, and they thought like it was temporal lobe epilepsy, it's a medication that sometimes is given to people. It's not why I was taking it, but sometimes given to people with BPD to help them supposedly rage less. And all I can tell you from my personal experience was it was helping with the temporal lobe epilepsy or the symptoms of that at the time, but it didn't have any effect on how hard I raged or if I raged. So I would just say from my own personal experience, that's something that had the use of it, because it was an anticonvulsant medication, really for like epilepsy, like I was going through symptomology of that. And it's not really for psychiatric use or to stop rage or, I don't know, uplift your mood magically. And I didn't experience anything of the sort. So I was further along in my treatment by that time in psychotherapy, but I was also, having the physical symptoms, and that's why I took that medication. But that's not one of the traditional, more or less known, quote, psychiatric medications. But it didn't do a darn thing for the rage that I was having back in my 20s, late teens and 20s. And so I'm just sharing that to say, just because somebody with BPD's taken their meds, honestly, I hate to be the one to report this all the time, it doesn't really mean much. Because meds won't regulate, meds aren't going to change the lack of self, the identity diffusion. Meds aren't going to help them understand all the things they need to learn, unlearn, and then learn about how to relate to self and others. So I hope that was helpful. And now I've lost a comment. But my message in general, again, not to be saying all people with BPD are just horrible people, but they really, really have huge issues in interpersonal relating, and they can't really even relate to themselves. They don't have awareness of self emotionally, interpersonally. They have communication and self-awareness deficits. And these are really core issues in BPD. So, I just recommend people, work on, like, go to therapy, or I'm out here to work with you too if you resonate with me. Get into working with someone who's an expert in this area so that you can figure out why you got there, like the commenter said he's going to do. And also, definitely, I think the best way to go is that anybody that has BPD, unless and until they can really demonstrate, and like I have documentation of my recovery, but unless and until they can demonstrate that they have a life that meets the, meets the stated sort of picture of what healthy functioning is after having BPD. So, friends and interpersonal relationships and consistency and congruency, knowing self, taking responsibility, having a career, just all the things that a lot of people with BPD, some of them have careers and such. But the point is, I wouldn't say that there's a good sign in any way, shape, or form to hang in for if just because they're taking medication, or if they're sporadically maybe going to go to therapy, but like they might be doing impulsive other things, why they can't afford it, and their priorities probably aren't in the right place. It's just too risky for people. So my message is, don't date, don't continue dating, don't stay in any relationship, not even a long-term marriage, which has probably been up and down all over the map, and sometimes on off as well, and they crumble at one point or another. And likely for younger people now, they crumble faster than they did maybe for people just 10 years younger than me or in my generation. Late stage baby boomer here, don't hold it against me, because us late stage baby boomers weren't like the first 20 years of them. I would say, okay, boomer to them all day long too, but most of them are, a lot of them are still here and really old, but yeah. Anyway, having said all that, my recommendation is that if you find out a person has BPD, of course, then you have to find out what that is, but wherever you are now and knowing a lot about BPD, or more and more about BPD, it's time for you to learn more about codependency. And it's time for you to learn more about why you're in the relationship, why you put up with the way that you were treated in the relationship, why the trauma bond, why the fantasy bond. This is the healing journey that people need to take so that you will know what I'm saying right now when I say I don't recommend anybody is in any relationship with anybody with borderline personality disorder. Because, they owe it to themselves, people with BPD, to maybe stay single for a while, and to work on themselves and to prioritize themselves. So I'm not trying to say, people with BPD are just horrible. They unfortunately have this personality disorder, and or we could probably put it in a couple of other places and describe that differently, but it really handicaps them, not in the way you need to feel sorry for them and extra give and overgive, because they're just going to keep kicking you in the teeth one way or the other and breaking your heart. So long story short, no, somebody on BPD isn't a good sign that you could try more or go back or think about the future. And people with BPD in general, I've had so many clients over the last 35 years. So I'm still working with a lot of clients, really busy, but still out here to work with you if I resonate with you. Point is, so many people have tried to, do the on-off thing and wait and go back, and people are still hoping that maybe in a year or two, for some fantasy reason, that maybe then you can try again with the borderline, etc. Well, no, just no, because it's too dangerous for you. It's self-abandonment. People need to heal the codependency, do the family of origin work, do the inner child healing, do the individuation work and self-differentiation work that people with codependency need to do. Because once you do that in therapy, you won't even be asking the question, oh, well, if they're taking their meds, is that a good sign? Or are they going to therapy? I have so many clients that have people with, like a person with BPD, that they're still, it's on, off, it's on, off, it's on, off. And they continue to just, when it's on again, there they go. When they get hoovered, there they go. Because, like this commenter said, I want to find out how I got in the relationship, and I want to find out why I can't leave. And the part about why you can't leave, to the commenter and anyone else that resonates, it's the trauma bond, and that's partly your issue. It's not all about the borderline, and that's what I've been saying out here. You need to get into that work, as the commenter said he's going to, with someone, and you need to understand that, because all the questions that you can ask that are focused on a person with BPD are self-abandoning questions, when you deserve to be focusing on your precious and oh so lost self. You matter number uno in your life, number one in your life. And that's not narcissistic, and that's not something to feel like you're selfish about, and that's not something to have shame or guilt about. But codependents feel all of those things, and the shame and the guilt is toxic in that sense. So please know that you need to do your own work. And I think the commenter's question was really a good ones. And that's why I wanted to do the video response, to say more about it for more people to hear and consider. You shouldn't be having any relationship or trying to continue or having hope in the fantasy bond that, oh, maybe like down the road, or we'll get back together in 10 years even. Because if you do your own healing work, you won't care about that anymore. And you'll really learn to prioritize yourself in a way that is super healthy. Because I'm not saying people want to prioritize themselves and never think about anybody else again. Of course not. But maybe not think about the borderline X again, or a parent with BPD or NPD or whatever, that is just never going to change. And by the way, I know all about this because I've been on the other side of cluster B. I was the adult, I was the child, and then the adult child of a BPD, NPD mother, alcoholic, and a NPD, malignant narcissist, psychopathic, into the dark tetrad father, alcoholic. And what I went through with them, the long and the short of it is, that's not the only place in my life, because I had a couple of relationships, a couple of people with cluster B after I was, over my issues, shall I say. And the point is that these relationships just don't work. They're toxic, and they're exceedingly unhealthy. And they're unhealthy not only because of the borderline or the narcissist, but because the person with codependency who might not recognize or realize that yet, or all the people still in denial about it, you come and you get in a relationship with them. People with BPD bring their exceeding codependency, their severe codependency with their BPD and everything else going on. And the codependent brings the codependency, the fantasy bond, and it goes together, it intermingles, it crosses over. It's not all the person with borderline personality disorder's responsibility. How they treated you, how much they wounded you and hurt you is their responsibility, but not the whole reason that you were there, not the whole reason that now people are trauma bonded still. So it's like, I've had enough of this, I need to get out of this, I can't do this anymore, but I'm not sure, I want to know how I got there, because why can't I get out? And the answer to why you can't get out is somewhat individual for everybody, based on your life experience in your childhood and family of origin, but also it's about trauma bonded connections that really weren't the healthy love or fantastic everything that everybody thinks they were. Not that there wasn't some kind of love in there, not that there wasn't maybe some peak experiences, but again, people with BPD have fragmented egos, and they're in pieces. And so you might get that one wonderful shard where they can be a little bit more, give you the good of all the good in many ways, but that shard is but a piece, but a fragment. And all the other pieces, they're not attached, they're not connected. There's no self-coherence, there's no container of self in these people. And BPD is a relational disorder as well. and there's communication deficits. And if you read a good clinical psych text, it'll tell you, as I have read, many and over the years, and when I was at university, obviously, but in personality disorders, and so we're sticking with BPD here right now, there are so many awareness deficits, self-awareness and other deficits, as well as relational deficits and communication deficits. So it's not just, they split and they're hot and cold and the push-pull. There's a whole lot more under that in the core of what fuels the splitting and the alloplastic defenses and the egosyntonic nature of whatever they think they need and they want, whatever they feel right now, it's really real and okay. When obviously it's a very distorted sense of reality, especially when they're trying to interrelate to someone else. They're not even having a self to try to interrelate to you with. So I hope that was helpful. And as always, take care.